And welcome back to GBS Morning Extra. As I mentioned to you earlier before the break, today in this news item, we are going to be joined by a guest who will be talking to us from the capital of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. But before we bring him into the conversation, the government of Ethiopia has said that its daily COVID-19 testing capacity has increased to 3,985 after 12 testing laboratories began operating last week. The addition of 12 testing laboratories has now increased the total number of COVID-19 testing labs in Ethiopia to 20, according to Dr. Leah Tadessa, the Minister of Health of Ethiopia. The minister indicated that this will allow the country to conduct coronavirus tests of 3,985 suspected individual cases daily. Out of the total laboratories, 9, including the one private, are found in the capital, Addis Ababa, while the remaining are in different parts of the country. She also stated that soon 5 more testing laboratories for the coronavirus will go operational. Since Ethiopia reported its first confirmed COVID-19 case in mid-March 2020, the country has conducted a total of 6,500 laboratory tests for the suspected, or for those people suspected of being infected by the virus. These included 3 new cases found over the past 24 hours. So far, a total of 114 COVID-19 cases have tested positive, as reported by Ethiopian authorities, and also of which 3 have died and 15 recovered. The World Health Organization has been advising countries to increase their COVID-19 laboratory testing capacity to contain the situation. Recently, Ethiopia received a consignment of testing kits and other equipment to help fight the COVID-19 in Ethiopia through the government of China. And the Chinese government was also kind enough to send experts into the country to help with this. Let's listen in to the remarks by the Minister for Health, Dr. Leah Tadesse, during the receiving of the consignment.
Shown an amazing progress in terms of the containment and of the outbreak, and they are here to share their experiences with our medical and public health team in terms of how we are doing the response and the areas of collaboration. And at the same time, of course, they have also brought commodities especially related to personal protective equipment in terms of infection prevention, which are really highly needed in these times for those who are giving services in our different facilities and in the response overall.
Well, indeed, governments around the world are grappling with the control of the COVID-19, and we would like to give our viewer a test and also what other governments are trying to do apart from what is happening at home. We've seen, by and large, countries, especially in Africa, trying to put in measures. Rwanda went first with a total lockdown of 21 days, which they actually did extend. South Africa also followed suit, and we've got other African countries that are putting measures. But so far, Kenyan government has not really moved to have a full total lockdown, but we've seen cessation of areas like Nairobi, Mombasa, Kilifi, and the Kwale County, or if I may call them metropolitans. And today we want to give you a feel of the same, and joining us through on the online platform is my guest this morning, who will be updating us on what is happening in the land of Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. I'm talking about Frederick Osiro, who is a Kenyan living in Ethiopia. Frederick Osiro, welcome to GBS Morning Extra.
Thank you very much, Timothy.
Frederick, maybe just if you can tell our viewers, what do you do in Ethiopia?
Timothy, I'm a teacher. I'm an English language teacher here in Addis Ababa. Yes.
Thank you, Frederick. Maybe just as we begin, Frederick, I would just like to get a feel from you what it's like in Ethiopia and what measures that the government in Ethiopia is putting in place to try and just curb the COVID-19.
Yes, you see, the situation is a really bad situation, as we know from most of the countries. I mean, all of the countries in the world. This is something that has really hit the world, and as many countries, also Ethiopia is also trying their best. I know of a fact that
Frederick, I seem to be losing you. Frederick Osiro there. Frederick Osiro is a youth activist and also is, I would say, a gender and equality advocate. And Frederick, can you hear me? We seem to have lost Frederick there. But a country like Ethiopia, we realize that still people are moving. And earlier on, talking to Frederick, one thing I realized for sure is that the country has not really stepped up its measures in terms of the measures that they're taking in terms of protecting themselves. Like Frederick was mentioning to me that in a country like Kenya right now, wearing of masks, this is something that is mandatory. And the other day we saw in the media people actually being arrested for not putting on their masks. Frederick, are you back? Yes, Frederick, if you can hear me, just you can just paint the situation to us. Right now in Kenya, so many measures taken by the government, you know, some areas partially locked, like the cessation of Nairobi, Kwale, Malindi, and Mombasa metropolitans. We've got the 5 to 7 curfew, and movement is limited into some areas, and social gatherings have been banned. But how is the situation in Ethiopia? Are they applying the same, or is it more worse, or not to the same level that Kenya is tackling the COVID-19?
Timothy, as I told you yesterday, Ethiopia is also putting on their measures. For example, there is the massive test. Right now, the government has rolled out a plan to do house-to-house testing. There are some regions that are already complete with that. So in Addis Ababa, we are still waiting because they are going from house to house and they test. And then for those ones who are found, news has it that they are quarantined immediately. Apart from that, there's also testing. Walking down the streets of Addis Ababa, there are a lot of tents, medical tents that are conducting the tests. So I think that is also one of the things that Kenya has to, like, we need to really do that, because we don't have to wait until some symptoms are starting to show. So apart from that, in terms of masks and all that, that is something that the government is still reluctant. I don't know whether they have already done that, but as what I can see from the streets, compulsory mask is not really the situation. People are still walking without it. I heard that Kenya right now, if you don't have the mask, then there is a fine. You told me that yesterday. So yeah, but of course there are also some challenges. There are also some challenges to this, and that is where I really see a lot of loopholes, because the government is also restricting the use of network. Yeah, the use of network, the limitation on phone and internet. So this is really a very big thorn in terms of controlling the virus, because people are not having this information. Yes.
Perhaps are they maybe afraid that using the social media, because as we've seen in other countries, and especially talking about the use of social media to spread what governments today are calling fake news. And we saw the situation in Wuhan where this all began. You know, people took to social media and shared information that was not accurate, that was not right. Is the Ethiopian government trying to use that also as an ally to try and prevent the, panic and false information regarding the spread of the COVID-19 in Ethiopia?
I think that is also one of it, but let me just get you back to some little bit of history because Ethiopia, even before this pandemic, Ethiopian government has always restricted the internet. For those ones who have been to Addis Ababa, they know that the internet has been something that it's like power. It comes and it goes. It comes and even right now I'm worried because I don't know whether the network can go anytime. But
No.
they have always restricted the internet in terms of the activists. There is not so much freedom because people post things online. Of course, that is also one of the fears, but I can't really say it is because of that because that has always been the case. The internet has always been rationed and limited, just like water and electricity.
Mm-hmm. Osiro, you go by the title of a youth activist, gender and equality advocate. In your line of work there, what is the civil society doing in terms of also helping in creating, public awareness and also just trying to engage civilians on civic education? I mean, as much as the government is not, the government cannot always reach everyone, but then the civil society also has, a part to play in terms of bringing people to the knowledge of what is going on around them. What is the civil society in Ethiopia particularly doing to help spread the word about this coronavirus?
On that, Timothy, I think honestly, because of the language barrier, you see, most of the time, even when I get to social media, it's very hard to read because most of them are written in Amharic. But from my friends, my colleagues, we are teaching me, and the friends I have around, they tell me that a lot of people are volunteering, even those ones who have been politically involved in those activities, they are contributing because Addis Ababa is like the main city of this country. So most of the things are happening here in the center. But some regions like Oromia and Tigray, they are being excluded from most of these things. So those activists from my friends I hear they have been involved in going into those arid areas and penetrating those routes so that they can educate them. Because you see, right now, if you call someone using the Ethiopian Ethiotel, there's the message that the government is really trying to pass across the message on corona. That is like the schizotype, if I can put it that way. But you see, that one is helping only those ones who have the cell phones. So these activists are involved in going to the villages for those ones who can't access the cell phone in order to give them the right message because of the limitation of the internet. So I hear that a lot is being done, to be fair, on the ground. Apart from the activists, even people, just civilians. You walk in the streets of Addis Ababa, you find people giving masks. They give it for free. There's a lot of sanitizers along the streets. You get out of the house, there's a sanitizer at the gate. You go to the supermarket, there's always a mask being given and sanitizers. And these are just people who are volunteering to do that. The medical uh, uh, fraternity and even the business owners, the millionaires and all those people who have the ability to do that. So a lot is being done. A lot is being done on the ground.
In our conversation yesterday, Osiri, you mentioned something when I asked about, when I gave you an example of what the Kenyan government is doing through the Ministry of Education, through the Ministry of Health, I beg your pardon, that has always been giving us a daily update. And it's almost something that every day you must expect, either the CAS come out there or the CAS, Dr. Mwangangi, come and update the country on the progress of, the situation, new infections, are there new measures that are being put in place, are there new deaths, or are there new cases, and so on and so forth. Is this the same case in Ethiopia? Is the Ethiopian government sharing as much information as we've seen in Kenya and elsewhere?
Timothy, that is where I really want to commend the Kenyan government because we are not really seeing that daily updates as much as Kenya is doing it, and people really need to appreciate that because you see here in Ethiopia, it's only maybe once or twice or thrice. It's not that regular as you can witness also in Kenya, especially when there are cases to be announced. That is when we see the minister coming on public announcing when there are some donations coming from outside Africa, We also see a press release on that. But apart from that, I think there is also much that is being done in terms of the message being passed through messages. Like I see up to now, I still have my Safaricom line. I see the Ministry of Health sending me messages.
Sure.
Also, that is the same happening also, because they also update people on that. The Ministry of Health, but now the problem is they send it mostly in Amharic. But I have even groups that people have already translated, so they send the translation. So that is being done frequently. That is also something that is being done by the government.
Uh-huh.
So I can say the information is reaching the people, but not so much.
Maybe finally, before I let you go, Bwana Osiro, there's something you mentioned about, the government controlling the internet. What happens now? Because I also believe from our conversation and also from, report out there, is that schools have also been suspended for a while. And this happened right around March, where when the Kenyan government suspended, school going, and it's just, I think, a day or two after that the Ethiopian government also suspended people from going to schools. That's students in both primary, secondary, and also university. Maybe you can just tell us, how then is it possible, you as a teacher, for you to reach out? Is the online learning going on well with this control by the government on the internet?
Just like I mentioned yesterday, there is not so much being done in terms of online classes and online education. Although I also mentioned to you that there are some individuals who are trying to privatize this so that they can also continue with the programs, especially the international schools. I hear there is a lot of programs they have put in place. The British International, even the Turkish international schools, they are putting all these strategies online. But for the government side, there is not so much being done. There's not so much being done. But Timothy, before you let me go, I think it's also important that I also pass the message across to the young people out there. Because you see, for someone who is just like around Kenya and has not have the information out, trying to see how other countries are tackling this pandemic, we might put so much pressure on our government. But to be fair enough, Timothy, Kenya is really doing a lot of things. I'm not saying this for the sake of patriotism. Kenya has done a lot in terms of trying to put this. The problem that we're facing is the young people outside there. We are really misusing the internet. We are really misusing, because if we can use the internet to pass false information, I don't think that is going to help in terms of containing this situation.
Sure.
We really need to use the internet to pass the correct information. We need to be people, ambassadors of peace and hope. Let us not just come outside every time and say, we are going to die, we are going to die. You see, that is not the message that we need to hear right now. We need to hear the message of hope, because I know for sure we are going to overcome this. And when we overcome this, I want the world to remember this generation of the young people as having been very instrumental in terms of fighting this COVID-19.
Sure.
So I want to tell the youth out there, be ambassadors of good information. We can also do some online contribution. We can also contribute to help those ones who need us the most at this time. We can also be people who are the ambassadors of spreading the right information, not falsified information. We don't have to forward everything we get in our groups to people outside there. Let us only forward verified information. And most importantly, we can also contribute in terms of giving masks, also innovation. I saw something that Dedan Kimathi University did, the students and plus the lecturers, and that is really commendable. They are trying to do a lot in terms of research and even producing masks. I even saw Kitui, they are really producing masks. So if you really look at what the youth can do in terms of this thing, it is a lot. The youth can do a lot, because the Kenyan population right now, we are almost 75% are under 35 years old. Yes, so this is a very big population that can really impact the society. If only we use our potential the correct way, then we can really pass through this. And for sure, we'll say one day that it is because of what we did as a society, as a generation, as a millennial, that saved the generation. So that is what I really want to pass out there. That would not have gone without mention, Timothy.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Bona Frederick Osiro. Frederick Osiro is a youth activist and a gender and equality advocate based in Ethiopia. He is also a teacher there, and we are really grateful that you found time also to join us today, Bona Osiro. I do hope that we'll keep in touch and that you'll be able also to feed us in on the progress in Ethiopia as time continues. And indeed, like he mentioned, the young people also needs to take place or to take their part or their position in the fight against the COVID-19, because as rightfully mentioned there by Frederick Osiro, is that the future generations will remember this time and say that the youth of this country did participate largely in fighting or fending off this pandemic. He mentioned a few universities that are putting into place measures also to help come up with ways to try and just curb this pandemic. We also saw, apart from Kitui and the other university he mentioned, we have also seen the KU University come up with locally assembled and made ventilators, which will go a long way in helping, you know, in that situation during this fight against the pandemic. Well, for now, we do take another quick break, but when we come back, I still got more for you. We're also going to be joined by a guest in studio who is going to also help us look at the gains made in the e-learning and how Kenyans can make use of this in terms of just trying to access education at this time of the pandemic.